Green Day with Basket Case from the Dookie album, one of the 24 songs on Jamie Thomas's file sharing list. We're not quite done yet. The final piece of the home taping story is coming next.
More of the secret history of rock coming up. Back to the secret history of rock with Alan Cross.
Throughout this whole story about how we, music consumers, have been making copies of songs from records and CDs, there has always been something in place to keep us from doing it. In the early days, it was the expense of the equipment. Then it came down to quality. Tapes made from albums didn't sound quite as good as the original, and tapes of tapes were horrible. In the digital era, equipment, ease of use, and sound quality were no longer issues. It was the law, and the lawyers willing to enforce it on behalf of rights holders. But there was also something else, digital rights management, or DRM. These are the locks placed on files that limits their use after they've been sold to someone. Breaking these locks violates the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998. Lots of digital-based companies use various forms of DRM to make sure that we don't make copies of things that we're not supposed to. Microsoft uses DRM on software. Amazon uses DRM on ebooks. Audible uses DRM on audiobooks. AOL, the BBC, Sony, cable TV companies, they all use some kind of DRM somewhere in their ecosystem. Record labels tried to use DRM on CDs to make them uncopyable and unrippable, but that turned out to be a really bad idea. In 2005, Sony, the record label part of the company, not the electronics manufacturer, slipped some DRM protection on some of their CDs. If you slip one of these discs into your CD-ROM of your computer, a little bit of code called a rootkit installed itself automatically deep within your system. And this created all kinds of issues with people's computers, and there was a huge outcry and some class action lawsuits. EMI tried a similar sort of thing, but stopped selling those discs in 2007. They probably learned something from Sony's problems. Piece of trivia. The first supposedly unrippable CD was a tribute to Jim Reeves by Charlie Pride. I have no idea why. So, locking up CDs didn't work. What about digital files? Well, that's a whole lot easier. And at first, all of the songs in Apple's iTunes store were locked down by DRM. This was the carrot that Steve Jobs used with the recording industry when he was first pitching the idea of a digital music store. In fact, you still might have some .m4a files on your hard drive. But by early 2007, there was a real movement to get rid of DRM on legally sold digital downloads of music. The biggest proponent of getting rid of DRM? Steve Jobs. In February 2007, he wrote an open letter to the music industry, and it went like this. Why would the big four music companies ever agree to let Apple and others distribute their music without using DRM systems to protect it? The simplest answer is because DRMs haven't worked and may never work to halt music piracy. Much of the concern over DRM systems has arisen in European countries. Perhaps those unhappy with the current situation should redirect their energies towards persuading the music companies to sell their music DRM-free. Convincing them to license their music to Apple and others DRM-free will create a truly interoperable music marketplace. Apple will embrace this wholeheartedly. And guess what? Steve got his way. And on January 6th, 2009, iTunes removed DRM from 80% of its 10 million songs. And by April 7th, 2009, everything was unlocked. And now virtually every piece of music you buy online through a legitimate music portal is as unprotected as that CD that you bought in a store 25 years ago.